Hey guys, yesterday we just had the big Apple event. We saw the new iPad Pro, new Mac Mini. That was kind of a surprise to me if we knew it was coming, and the new MacBook Air. They've all been a long time coming. So let's take a look and see what's actually worth buying. Okay, first we'll take a look at this new iPad Pro. I think all around this is a winner of a device. You have the new Apple Pencil, and you can see it no longer has this stupid, I guess you call it a pencil boner, where, where it charges by plugging into the lightning port. There's no more stupid cap to lose. It attaches magnetically to the side of the iPad Pro, and it charges that way also. So everything's done magnetically. It's a lot more Apple-like. It's a lot smoother. But the biggest thing you'll notice here is no more home button. It's not quite edge to edge, but it is a very thin bezel display. No more home button. Everything's done through gestures, which were introduced, of course, in iOS 12. This is very much the iPhone 10, iPhone X, however you like to say it, of the iPad world. You have 11 and 12.9-inch screens, and both of these come in smaller form factors than previously. So actually very efficient in terms of space. Another major change is that there's no more lightning port. This is now USB-C, so you can attach things like external monitors to the iPad Pro. That has been confirmed. Remains to be seen what other accessories will work. Overall, I think this is very good, but let's look at the prices. You're going to find this is not the cheapest iPad. So the existing 10.5-inch iPad Pro is still on sale, still for $649. This new one starts at $799, so it's quite a price bump for the 11-inch. The 12.9-inch starts at about $1,000. And if you really bump this thing up, you can spend upwards of $2,000 on this iPad very easily. You know, I would just go for that base model, $799. Now, of course, there's the base model iPad that also supports the Apple Pencil. Of course, it supports the first-gen Apple Pencil, but it's $329. And for most people, I think this is all the iPad you're going to need. And this base model iPad, I think, is one of the few true great values in the Apple world. And I don't just mean in terms of in comparison to other Apple products. I mean, no, it really is a great price for this kind of product. You're not going to find an Android, Google, or even, I think, a Microsoft tablet with this much fit and finish and this much capability for $329, assuming you're a tablet person. So this is really the one Apple product I recommend without any reservations if you're in the market for an iPad. But if you want that new Pro, I don't blame you. I rate it a buy. Next up, we have this new MacBook Air. Now, this is everything people have been wanting out of a MacBook Air. Notice one thing. Unlike the MacBook Adorable, as I've heard it called, but the base model MacBook, there isn't just one port, there's two ports here, and these are not just USB-C, these are actually Thunderbolt 3 ports, so they're a lot more capable. But it's everything people have wanted in the Air, which is namely a Retina display, and it looks like it's going to be a tremendous Retina display. Also, Touch ID is built in, and and here's the interesting choice. No touch bar, just a little button there for the Touch ID sensor. However, you will notice this does have the butterfly keyboard, and even in the newer MacBooks Pro, people have been complaining about keys no longer functioning. Apple said they fixed it. It doesn't look like they really have. They may have reduced the failure rate somewhat, but I'm still hearing lots of complaints here. You know, on paper, it seems very good. You know, just an initial glance. Now the base model, let's see, you got 1.6 gigahertz dual core processor that turbo boosts up to 3.6 gigahertz. Comes with just 128 gigabytes of storage, 8 gigabytes of RAM, which is serviceable. But now remember, you cannot upgrade that, so you're stuck with that. I always recommend 16 gigabytes of RAM if you can swing it. You got the Touch ID, two Thunderbolt 3 ports, $1,200. That seems like a decent price. But then, okay, so if you want the 256 gigabytes of SSD storage, which I really recommend if this is going to be your daily machine, but that's closer to $1,400 there. Now, but check this out. So Apple has this really handy Mac comparison tool. So we're going to choose the new MacBook Air 13-inch. Now, I'm going to compare it to the base model MacBook Pro. This is the one without the touch bar. It also has two Thunderbolt 3 ports. Now, I want you to look here. The MacBook Air is $1199. The MacBook Pro is $1299. And you're going to see here, so this has a wedge, so it's 0.16 to 0.61 inches thick, not thin. But so the big difference is the MacBook Pro it's a little, actually it's a little thinner at its thickest point, but it has an even thickness. It weighs slightly more. You're comparing 2.75 pounds to 3 pounds. But now look at this. The MacBook Air comes with a 1.6 gigahertz dual core i5 with a turbo boost up to 3.6. Check this out. You get in the MacBook Pro a 2.3 gigahertz dual core i5 in the base model. Turbo boost up to 4 gigahertz. You get the same memory options. You get the same SSD options. I can't really compare the Intel graphics. I'm going to assume they're probably pretty similarly crappy, but they should be sufficient for daily use. And in theory, you can use an external GPU. In reality, that's not so cheap or practical in the Apple world. You have a brighter screen, same resolution. You actually have a better power adapter that comes with the MacBook Pro. You have a couple more hours of battery life, at least in theory, with the MacBook Air. But overall, I think I would spend the extra $100 and go with that MacBook Pro, because I think you get a lot more machine for your money, especially in terms of nothing else, just in terms of the processor. I have one of these machines right here. This is actually the Touch Bar model. But I've heard some people argue, oh, well, the MacBook Air is still worth it because of the thinness. Well, yeah, okay, it's going to be thinner, no doubt about that. But this is how thick the MacBook Pro is. This ain't exactly going to. It's not much thicker than an iPad. This isn't going to break your back or anything. It's going to slip pretty easily into an envelope. It's going to slip, not like anyone carries one like that. It's going to slip easily, into larger purses and go pretty much anywhere the MacBook Air is going to go. So I don't see much value in the MacBook Air. So I'm sorry, I'm going to have to give it a no buy. Finally, we're going to look at the all-new Mac Mini, which was a long time coming. The last time it was updated was 2014. I gotta say, for waiting for 4 years, this this wasn't that big of an update. It's basically the same form factor. It does have the T2 chip, which is interesting. That could mean very hard to repair. There is they say it's a redesigned cooling system. Curious how well that actually works, and a lot of Apple cooling systems just suck more dust in. So there is up to 64 gigabytes of RAM. So in terms of performance, this is a huge improvement over the old one. But then again, 4 years has passed, so it'd be hard not to. One thing I really like about this Mac Mini is the back here. I like the ports. Of course, power. You have to have power. Ethernet, and that can be configured with 10 gigabit if that's your thing. So you can really do a lot here. Has 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports, 1 HDMI 2.0 port. Interesting, that's not a 2.1. 2 USB 3 ports, and a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. Yes, there are still some Apple products with a headphone jack. And this can support up to one 5K display or 2 4K displays. So this new Mac Mini starts at $799, and I gotta tell you, for the money, I could build or even buy a much more powerful PC. We're looking at an i3 processor. You don't see a lot of those in the Apple world, at least not for the past few years. But that's a 3.6 gigahertz quad core, 6 megabytes shared L3 cache. You can have up to a 6 core. It comes with 8 gigs of RAM. And my understanding is you can actually upgrade that yourself. So that is a nice thing about this Mac Mini, is one of the few Macs that you can do any sort of upgrade yourself to. Now, the default is a 128 gigabyte SSD, which I just don't think is enough storage space for most people. You really need the 256 gigabyte Intel graphics. You don't have any sort of AMD graphics or anything else at this price point. Kind of a disappointing update. And then if you look at the pricing page here, the model you're really going to want is the 256 gigabyte SSD model. That's about $1,100. And you get to that point, you really start getting to that point, you're past $1,000. There's a lot more you can do, even in the Apple world. Let's take a comparison. Let's check out the Apple comparison tool. We're going to compare the Mac Mini. Let's see. So look just right here. So the Mac Mini, where we want to have it configured, because we want to have at least 256 gigabytes of internal storage. And now, mind you, that is non-upgradable. So you're stuck with whatever they give you. Now, of course, you can use Thunderbolt, you can use USB and expand your storage, but that's almost never as fast. Yeah, you can get a Thunderbolt 3 external hard drive enclosure and put an SSD in it, and they'll probably work great, but it's wonky, and that's also a really expensive option. So if you look at the base model iMac, this is the non-Retina iMac. You get a display, the same price as that upgraded iMac. You get a display. You get 2.3 gigahertz dual core. So you get the quad core with the Mac Mini. You get the dual core with the iMac. And you also get, but you do get a 1 terabyte spinning drive. I would probably look closer at the Retina 21.5-inch iMac. That's definitely where Apple would rather you go in the desktop space. $12.99. So you're going to spend a little bit more than that updated Mac Mini, but you're going to get a 4K display with that. 3 gigahertz quad core with turbo boost up to 4.2 gigahertz. 1 terabyte spinning hard disk. You know, and yeah, I don't like the spinning hard disk. I'd much rather have SSD, but Apple's SSD prices are just outrageous. Let's take a look at the 21.5-inch iMac configurations. So this is the Retina 4K. All right, the 3 gigahertz quad core. I think you definitely want the quad core these days. 8 gigabytes. Now, the one bad thing about this iMac is that you cannot upgrade the RAM yourself. So and they want $200 to upgrade to 16 gigabytes, which I'm sorry, is just ridiculous. But for $100, you can get that 1 terabyte Fusion drive, which I think, I've had a Fusion drive for 4 years now. It does have its quirks, but I think overall works really well. But now you're looking at about $1,400. You can really spend a lot of money on this Mac Mini if you want to. Yeah, 200. Yeah, we'll get the 64 gigabytes of RAM, 2 terabytes of SSD storage. Yeah, we'll go for that 10 gigabit Ethernet. And we're looking at $4,200, which is more than the 2013 Mac Pro. Very expensive machine, potentially. But if you fall into the narrow niche that needs this, then yes, I rate this a buy. But with a lot of caveats, you could get an Intel NUC machine. Of course, then you wouldn't have Mac OS, at least not officially. But you'd have a lot more value for your money. You could build or buy a pretty amazing PC. A lot of people like these Mac Minis as servers. I think you could do a lot better for your money for a server. There's all kinds of options. For $800, you could do a lot better for a server machine. A lot of people like to use these as home theater PCs, which I'm not sure how common that is anymore because, we have the Apple TV or Roku, all this stuff. You don't really need I don't know anyone that needs a home theater PC anymore. So this Mac, I'll say yes, buy this Mac Mini if you need a Mac Mini, but I don't think there's that many of you out there that need a Mac Mini. I hope this helps. If it did, be sure to give me a thumbs up and drop a comment. Let me know in the comments. Subscribe to this channel so you get future updates. And thank you for watching. God bless.